Greetings students, I welcome you to one more video session on this automotive systems, that is on steering system and suspension. Having seen the construction, operation and performance of an IC engine as a vehicle, all the automotive systems has to be perfectly synchronized to provide a comfort ride. So some of the automotive systems are braking, transmission, steering system and suspension and automotive refrigeration. Since steering system works along with the suspension to provide all these properties, here we divide the steering part and the suspension part to two different divisions for our learning purposes. Since it was very difficult to picturize and demonstrate certain functions, operations and geometries of the steering system and suspension, I have added some additional videos for your better understanding. Please refer those videos.
The steering system, along with the suspension, allows the driver to safely and easily control the vehicle's direction while driving. So, to accomplish these goals, the steering system always works with the components of the suspension to provide the turning moment of the wheels. The steering system should provide the control over the direction of the vehicle, good maneuverability, smooth recovery from the turns as the steering wheel is released, and minimum transmission of the road shocks from the road surface. So, the effort by the driver, that is the rotation of the steering wheel, is transferred from the steering wheel down to the steering column and to the steering box. The steering box then converts the rotary motion of the steering wheel to the linear motion to steer the vehicle, and it also provides a mechanical advantage to the driver. So the linear motion from the steering box is then transferred to the tie rod to the steering arms of the front wheels. The tie rod have ball joints that allows the steering movement and the movement of the suspension. The steering arm ball joints are designed so that the movement of the suspension does not affect the steering operation. The steering gearbox provides the driver with a leverage to exert a large force at the road wheel interface with a minimum effort, and thereby control the direction of the entire vehicle. There are two main fundamental functions of steering gearboxes. They are to change the rotary motion of the steering wheel to the linear motion on the wheel links, and to provide the sufficient gear reduction so that the adequate torque is provided to move the wheels. There are different types of the gearboxes. They have worm and worm wheel, worm and the roller, recirculating ball type, and rack and pinion. First type is the worm and the worm wheel steering. In this type, a worm is connected to the steering shaft and the worm gear is connected to the worm. When the steering shaft is rotated, the worm rotates along with the worm gear. So worm gear is generally connected to the steering linkages that is connected to the front wheels, which causes the wheels to turn. So this type is mainly used in tractors. Next is the worm and the roller steering. Here a roller is connected to the worm and the worm is connected to the steering shaft. So when the worm is rotated along with the steering shaft, the roller is also rotated along with it. So like a worm and worm gear, where the gear is fixed, it moves along with the roller. This displaces the connecting rod of the front wheels, which causes the wheels to turn. So you can see the animation how the connecting rod is displaced. Type is the recirculating ball type steering system. Here a worm gear is directly connected to the steering wheel of the vehicle. Here instead of the worm gear we have a sector gear. This sector gear and the worm are not connected to each other directly. A sliding rack is present on the worm. Based on the direction in which the worm is rotated, sliding rack moves accordingly to it. Since the rack is connected to the sector gear, the line to motion of the rack causes the rotational motion of the gear. This is how the front wheels are steered. The last type is the rack and pinion steering gearbox, which is most commonly used in almost all the LCV vehicles. It is most easy to fabricate, and here a pinion wheel is connected to the steering shaft and this pinion is meshed with the rack. Turning the steering wheel turns or rotates the pinion gear. This results in the movement of the rack in 2 1/4. The rack is attached to the steering linkages that turns the front wheel. This is our laboratory demonstrator unit on steering system along with the suspension. This is the steering wheel which is steered to provide the directional control to the vehicle. Other than that, it also holds airbags, bears several control switches in present cars like horn, light and audio controls. Here I am trying to steer the wheel and you can see the wheel responds to the steering wheel movement. Now I am changing the direction. You can see how the wheel again reverses its direction to the other side. The portion under the steering wheel have provision to have indicator controls, wiper controls and ignition switch, otherwise key provision to start the engine. Now you are seeing the steering column connecting the steering wheel and the steering gearbox by an universal joint. There are two universal joints provided to transfer the rotation of the steering wheel at any angle. Now this is the steering gearbox which starts from the rotary valve, and this is the working cylinder. What you are seeing is the working cylinder. This is the working cylinder and which the piston slides inside the cylinder along with the steering rack. These are the pipelines through which the high pressure steering fluid flows to assist the steering action. This is the oil reservoir in which the steering fluid is stored and supplied to the system for the power assistance. These are the hydraulic hoses which are used to transmit the high pressure steering fluid. And this is the engine driven steering pump which pressurizes the steering fluid from a low pressure fluid to the high pressure fluid. This is the electric motor which simulates the engine crankshaft rotation. This is the belt and pulley for transmitting the power. Now what you are seeing here is a cut section of a power steering setup. Before moving to the demonstrator of a power steering setup, let us look into the cut section of a power steering setup, by which we can have a clear understanding of how the power resistance is provided to the system. Since our laboratory demonstrator is a working model, the parts cannot be dismantled for our explanation purposes. So this is the point where the steering shaft is connected to the steering gear by a universal coupling, and this is the outer case covering the rotary valve and the pinion wheel of the rack and pinion assembly, and this is the hydraulic section, and these are the high pressure hoses. This is the rotary valve which is connected to the rack and pinion assembly, and this is the rack, and next is the ball joint. So this ball, the joint which is inside the bellows is the ball joint, and the ball joint is connected to the steering rack. One end of the ball joint is connected to the steering rack and the other end of the ball joint is connected to the tie rods. So this is the tie rod. To this tie rod the steering knuckle is connected, on which the front wheels are mounted on the steering knuckles. So this part is the mechanical section, while this one is the hydraulic part. It works with the combination of the both. The main merit of the power steering system is that if any failure in its power resistance, like in the pump or the lines of the hydraulic system, the mechanical side still works, so the control is stable always. When the steering is turned, a rotary valve integral to the steering input shaft directs fluid to one side or the other side of the piston attached to the steering gear. Pressure then increases as required to provide assistance. In a worm and roller steering box, piston slides in a cylinder in the casing. It has an extension formed on one side with teeth which will engage with the teeth of the pitman shaft. Pressure applied to the either side of the piston produces a force which is transferred through a teeth to help to turn the pitman shaft. In a rack and pinion steering, the piston is formed centrally on the steering rack. A rack housing provides the working cylinder. Seals at each end of the cylinder isolate the power section from the rack and the helical pinion. Seals in the rotary valve section at the pinion input prevent fluid leakage there. Connecting pipes transfer fluid from the rotary valve housing to the one side of the piston or the other to provide the assistance which acts directly on the rack. The rotary valve is located between the steering gear input shaft and the pinion gear. It consists of inner member which forms a part of the input shaft and a surrounding sleeve member fixed to the pinion gear. Turning the steering wheels makes both the members rotate in the steering gear housing, but it is the slight relative rotary displacement of the inner member and the sleeve member which controls and directs the power steering fluid flow. This slight rotary displacement is allowed by a torsion bar which is connected to the pinion gear at its bottom end and the input shaft at its top end. This slight rotary displacement is allowed by a torsion bar which is connected to the pinion gear at its bottom end and the input shaft at its top end. When the steering wheel is turned, there is a resistance from the front wheels at the road surface. Since the inner member is also attached to the input shaft, this twisting provides a relative rotary displacement of the inner members. It is this displacement that lets the fluid flow through the valve to act on the piston at the steering gear. The input shaft can twist through only a small angle before it contacts a stop on pinion gear. This is needed to provide a manual steering when the power assistance is not available. With the engine running and the steering in the neutral position, the fluid flow is directed into the valve assembly through a drilled hole. In the outer sleeve, as soon as the steering is turned to the left or right, the slight relative movement occurs between the inner and the outer members. In neutral position, the inner member lets fluid pass equally to both sides of the rack piston and return to the fluid reservoir. Equal pressure is applied to both sides of the rack piston. No power resistance is needed. When the steering is turned, the fluid is restricted from making a free return to the reservoir. It is then now directed to the side that matches the turning action. At the same time, on the opposite side is directed to the return circuit back to the reservoir. Slight rotation of the valve gives a small amount of assistance which becomes progressively greater as the torsion bar flexes and more assistance is needed. The grooves of the inner member are precisely shaped to meet at the flow of the fluid. Power assisted steering systems are most commonly used in the rack and pinion and Vermont sector type of steering gearboxes. A steering pump is generally a belt driven by the engine crankshaft. This means whenever the engine is running, the hydraulic flow is maintained. The most commonly used hydraulic pump is a centrifugal vane type. Rotation of the pump shaft spins the rotor and the retractable vanes inside a oval shaped cam ring. As a result, the hydraulic fluid is drawn into the pump housing from the reservoir. When the fluid travels through the pump housing, the low pressure fluid is converted to a high pressure of the vanes at its outlet. The working pressure is kept always constant irrespective of the engine speed due to the presence of the pressure relief valve, which pumps the excess fluid back to the reservoir during the excessive pressure. Having seen the function, the construction and the working of a power steering system, next we look into the steering geometry. The term steering geometry refers to the angular relationship between the suspension and steering parts, front wheels and the road surface. Because alignment deals with the angles and affects the steering action, the method of describing the alignment measurements is called steering geometry. There are 5 steering geometry angles. They are camber, caster, kingpin inclination, toe in and toe out turns. The first steering geometry to look at is camber angle. The proper camber settings on a vehicle will improve road isolation and the direction stability of the vehicle. Incorrect camber settings will cause tire wear and handling problems. Camber is defined as inward or outward tilt of the wheel at the top when viewed from the front of the vehicle. Camber is measured in degrees. A wheel with 0 degree camber is vertical. When the wheel tilts outward, it has positive camber, as well as when the wheel tilts inward at the top, it has negative camber. A small amount of negative camber is normal. The camber is adjustable, usually adjusted using shims or cams on the upper control arm. Camber is usually not adjustable in front wheel driven cars. The next steering geometry is the caster angle. The primary function of the caster is to improve the directional stability and the steering wheel returnability. Incorrect caster angles can cause excessive steering effect and tire wear. Caster is the forward or the rearward tilt with reference to a vertical line viewed from the side of the vehicle wheel. Caster is measured in degrees, and it is positive if the top of the steering axis is tilted in rearward. Caster is negative when the top of the steering axis is tilted forward. The next steering geometry is toe. The most critical alignment angle is the total toe on the steering action. The excessive positive or the negative toe can cause scuffing and wear on the shoulder of the tires. Total toe is defined as the difference in the distance measured across the front of the tires compared with the distance measured across the rear of the tires. The toe is measured in degrees. The toe is positive or toe in when the front of the tires become closer together when compared with the rear tires. Toe is negative or toe out where the rear of the tires are closer together when compared with the front of the tires. Zero toe occurs when the wheels are parallel. The toe is adjusted by adjusting the tie rods. Using the toe in and toe out, the steering system can also be serviced. Important steering geometry is the steering axis inclination and included angle. Steering axis inclination and the included angle are often used as diagnostic tools. Steering axis inclination is defined as the angle formed by a line drawn through the upper and the lower pivot points to the vertical line drawn from the center of the tire when viewed from the front of the wheel. Steering axis inclination is measured in degrees. We define camber as an inward or outward tilt of the tire when viewed from the front of the wheels. The camber is usually specified positive by the outward tilt. So, included angle is the combination of the steering axis inclination and the positive camber. Large side to side difference in steering axis inclination as included angle may indicate damage in the suspension components. Steering linkage connecting the steering gearbox and the wheels usually conforms to a variation due to the Ackermann steering geometry. This geometry is required to avoid the tire slip when you are turning a sharp corner like this. This geometric arrangement of the linkages in the vehicle steering has been designed to solve the problem of the wheels on inside and the outside of a turn needing to trace out the circles of different radii, since the inside wheel and the outside wheel follow a different circle radius. The solution to this is all the wheels should have their axles arranged as a radii of the circles with a common center point. Because the rear wheels are fixed and this center point must be on a line extended from the rear axle intersecting the axis of the front wheels. On the line requires the inner wheel to be turned at a larger angle than the outside wheel, and this is obtained by the linkage mechanisms. And you can see the linkage mechanism how it is turned, and the inner wheel is turning higher than the greater angle than the outer wheel on the both the sides. So you can see the instantaneous center.
Suspension system is the term given to the system of springs, shock absorbers, and linkages that connects a vehicle to its wheels, and allows relative motion between the two. The suspension system separates the wheel axle assembly from body. A vehicle needs a suspension system to cushion and damp out road shocks, so providing comfort to the passengers and preventing damage to the load and vehicle components. The springs and other components compress and expand, as the wheel hits bumps or holes in the road. This allows the wheel to move up and down without moving the vehicle body. Supports the weight of the vehicle. Provides a smooth ride. Allows rapid cornering without extreme body roll. Keeps tires in firm contact with the road surface. Allows front wheels to turn left or right for steering. Isolates the body from road shocks and vibrations. Prevents excessive body squat, tilting down at rear, when accelerating or heavily loaded. Prevents excessive body dive, tilting down at front, when braking. Suspension system includes steering knuckle, control arm, ball joint, suspension springs, sway bar and dampers. Steering knuckle is that part which contains the wheel hub or spindle, and attaches to the suspension and steering components. The wheel hub and bearing assembly is mounted on steering knuckle. Steering knuckle is mounting with tie rod for steering, lower arm, brake caliper, and strut. Control arm is a movable lever that fastens the steering knuckle to the vehicle's body or frame. Vehicles with short long arm front suspensions have 4 control arms, 2 uppers and 2 lowers. While most strut-equipped vehicles have only 2 lower control arms in the front suspension. Ball joint is chassis part that connects the steering knuckle to the control arm. The ball and socket design of the joint allows it to swivel, so the knuckles can pivot as the wheels are steered, and allows it to arc so the knuckles can follow the vertical motions of the suspension, as it reacts to changes in the road surface. Vehicles with short long arm front suspensions have 4 ball joints, 2 uppers and 2 lowers. While most strut-equipped vehicles have only 2 lower joints in the front suspension. The vehicle body is supported by the suspension springs, which are located between the body and wheel axles. There are four main types of springs in common use: coil spring, leaf spring, torsion bar, and rubber spring. A coil spring is simply a spiral of resilient steel rod. It is stretched or compressed by the vertical movement of the wheels. Coil springs are most common springs used in front and rear of passenger cars. Coil springs absorb the force of impact by twisting. The leaf spring is one of the oldest forms of springing. It is usually used on rear-wheel drive vehicles because of its simplicity. They are normally mounted longitudinally. Leaf springs are constructed of one or more strips of long, narrow spring steel. These metal strips, called leaves, are assembled with plastic or synthetic rubber insulators between the leaves, allowing freedom of movement during spring operation without creating wear or noise. The longest leaf, called the main leaf, is rolled at both ends to form eyes. These eyes are used to mount the spring to the frame of the vehicle. The leaves are held together by a center bolt that passes through a hole in the center of each leaf. Rebound clips are formed at intervals around the leaves. They prevent excessive flexing of the main leaf during rebound, and also keep the leaves in alignment. The front end of a leaf spring is mounted to a hanger, with a bolt and rubber bushings directly attached to the frame. The rear end of the leaf spring is attached to the frame with movable mounting hangers called shackles. The leaf spring is also used to locate the axle on the spring. The axle is then clamped to the spring by U-bolts that wrap around the axle housing and through a spring plate underneath the spring. Torsion bar is a straight spring steel rod with splined or square ends. One end of the bar is attached to the frame, and the other end is connected to the lower control arm. The torsion bar twists around its center as the control arm is deflected. Non-metallic materials like rubber can provide the main springing action, but are more commonly used as stops to limit extreme suspension movement. The stops can also be shaped to provide an auxiliary springing function in light vehicle applications. Bump stops can help cushion the suspension and prevent it from bottoming out. Bump stops are made in a few different designs, so they mount in different places. Some are placed in line with the piston rods of shocks, others mount between frame and axle, absorbing impact before the axle gets a chance to slam into the frame. Sway bar is also called stabilizer bar or anti-roll bar. Sway bar connects lower control arms on both sides of vehicle. Sway bar operates as a spring when car leans to one side. If one wheel moves up or down in relation to the other wheel, bar twists as it tries to move the other wheel along with it. The energy of road shock cause the spring to oscillate. These oscillations are restricted to reasonable level by damper. There are three types of dampers: shock absorber, coilover, and strut. Shock absorber are conventional telescopic dampers. They are used on all conventional suspension systems to dampen and control the motion of the vehicle's springs. One end is connected to the body or frame, and the other is connected to the axle or control arm. Shock absorbers work alongside springs, to reduce the impact of bumps and potholes. There are different kinds of shock absorbers, but they all use a piston sliding in a cylinder filled with oil. A monotube shock has a single piston and rod assembly in a damping case, in which both compression and rebound occur. Also, it has a free piston that completely separates the oil chamber from the gas chamber. The oil flows through a valve in the piston, and the monotube has some volume of gas that accounts for any volume change in the oil. Twin tubes have an inner cylinder which moves up and down, and an outer cylinder which serves as a hydraulic reserve. This design allows for an increase in suspension stroke, which provides better ride quality and handling. A valve at the bottom of the shock allows the oil to flow into the reservoir as the piston moves up and down. A coilover is a suspension device which consists of a shock with a coil spring encircling it. There are two types of coilovers: full coilovers and slip-on coilovers. Full coilovers are matched up with a shock absorber from the factory, while with slip-on coilovers, the dampers and springs are bought separately and then assembled. Coilover is found on many vehicles. It is used in double wishbone suspension systems, and is often a component of McPherson struts. A strut is a structural part of the vehicle's suspension system, and is mounted to the chassis on the top, and they come down through. A strut assembly is made up of the strut, bump stop or boot, spring, spring seat, and mount. The bottom of the strut usually attaches to the steering knuckle, and the top of the strut is connected to the vehicle body through an upper strut mount.
To start with the suspension, this is the steering end. From the steering end, a steering knuckle is connected to this tie rod by means of a ball joint. This is a ball joint, and this is the steering knuckle. So this, on the steering knuckle, the wheel hub is mounted on it. And this is the McPherson strut. The McPherson strut is a combination of a damper and a coil spring. So this is the coil spring, and this is the damper. And here the control arm. Here this is the control arm. The control arm used here is a wishbone type. So this is the control arm. And this control arm is pivoted to the vehicle cradle by a rubber bushing here. You can see this rubber bushing, and this is the vehicle cradle. based on the bump on the road, the tire moves up and down. So depending upon the movement, the wishbone moves slightly up and down around its pivoted point. So this is the torsion bar, which is the only connecting member between the two front independent wheels, and this torsion bar is connected to the vehicle cradle by two rubber bushings. These are the two rubber bushings, and this is held to the vehicle cradle by a clamp. So two clamps are provided here. The functions and the operations of all the suspension components are already provided you in the additional